Hi guys, and welcome to the Project Achilles. Today we are with Matt, and we're going to discuss legal aspect of self-defense about this road rage where you can see this guy getting off his car with his sword and running into another driver who is finally pulling out a gun from his trunk.
Oh, where are you finna get?
So Matt, what do you think about that situation?
Sure. So let's break down the video a little bit as I'm watching it here. It looks like looks like it's a road rage incident. I can't obviously tell what happened before this, but they stop. One guy gets out of his car, pulls out a sword. The sword looks like it's plastic because it's broken. The tip is folded, and then he backs off. So let's break this down. So when somebody approaches you, whether it's a plastic sword or a real sword, any type of object that could hurt you, you're allowed to defend yourself. That's what self-defense is, right? Where this breaks bad for the other driver, who would normally be the victim of this, is that he uses excessive force. So self-defense must be reasonable. You have to reasonably defend yourself. However, if your aggression or if the force is excessive, if it goes beyond the proportionate amount of force that the other aggressor is giving you, then you could get yourself in legal problems, right? In legal trouble. And here, it looks like the guy with the sword backs off, goes back to his car, and then the other driver goes to his trunk and gets a gun, gets a weapon. It looks like a rifle, I think. It's hard to tell from the video. So now you're talking about a rifle versus a plastic gun. Who's going to win? Obviously, the guy with the gun is going to win, but at that point, he would be criminally charged if he used that gun because the force is unreasonable, it's excessive, it's not proportionate to that force that the other individual is giving him, which is just a plastic weapon. If this was a fist fight, if it was another object, maybe even another bat, it would be fine. Like a bat versus the sword, it would be fine. But here, a plastic toy sword versus a gun, excessive, not self-defense.
Let's say that this guy is having a real sword, something made of steel. Would the other driver be able to use the rifle against him and shoot at him and potentially kill him?
Sure. In that hypothetical, it's much more reasonable to use self-defense with that weapon, right? When you have a real samurai sword and it's that big and it's sharp, you are in what we call imminent danger of receiving death or great bodily harm, right? And you could use whatever's in your means to defend yourself. In that situation, it's much more reasonable. The force is much more equal. It's not, the disparity is not like this. Now the disparity is getting closer. It's almost even. So when you have equal force, you're allowed to defend yourself from the initial aggressor. Absolutely. Self-defense in that type of situation.
I'm wondering, there is a break in the action. You can see the guy threatening the other driver with the weapon, and then he goes back to his car. And the driver who was threatened first goes to his trunk and is actually pulling the gun out. What if, let's say that it was an actual real sword made of steel, and then this guy shoots at the other driver who is just, after all the threats and everything, going back in his car. Is it still self-defense or not?
That's a great question. So at that point, the threat is neutralized. It's gone. There's no more threat. You cannot now up the force. At that point, it's excessive force. Remember, to use self-defense, you must have an imminent threat, which means that a threat that's right there, it's right about to happen. When the other individual retreats, goes back in his car and begins to drive away, there's no use for any other force at that point. If that second driver were to take his gun and begin shooting, he would be the aggressor, he would be the offender at that point, and he would be the one that would be charged with a criminal offense.
So basically, what the people watching us should understand is that the threat has to be actual, imminent,
reasonable,
and reasonable.
So it has to be reasonable, right? So initially, anybody's going to feel initially threatened when somebody comes up to them with some type of weapon like a plastic sword, right? But you could fight back. You could fight back with your fist. You could fight back with any other object. That's equal force, right? However, when you start getting a gun, and then the other person retreats, and then you get your gun and you follow them, the disparity is too great, and it's no longer self-defense. Remember, self-defense is proportionate force. The disparity is too big at that point. The threat is no longer imminent. That person, the initial victim, would now turn into the aggressor and be the one charged with some type of offense.
In that situation, right now, does the owner of the rifle could be charged for assault with a with a deadly weapon or something like that.
So an assault means that you're putting somebody in imminent apprehension of receiving some type of battery or injury, right? So at that point, he didn't, at least from the video that I saw, this little clip, he didn't point the gun. He went to grab the gun. For it to be imminent, he has to like really point the gun or threaten him with the gun in a more direct way than just grabbing it. If he ends up grabbing it and following him to the car, yes, that could be considered aggravated assault at that point. That's a very good question.
So what we should tell to people is that once you understand that it has to be imminent and proportionate, you also should be like be careful of not hunting someone back, because it's not self-defense anymore, right?
Of course, yeah. Remember, in any area of the law and life, you have to be reasonable, even when your emotions are high. Like when you're fighting, when it's jujitsu or when it's mixed martial arts, even when you're fighting, you have to be reasonable in your approach. And in life, you have to be reasonable when you're fighting for your life as well. And if you take that approach, and you're fine, the threat can be neutralized with an equal threat. But when it's so aggressive and the person is moving away, or the person doesn't really have a weapon and you do, that's when you could get in trouble. Absolutely.
Okay, it's making a lot of sense. Thank you very much, Matt, for your legal analysis and breakdown of that video. I don't have more question about it, like from the legal aspect, because I think it's very clear. However, I'd like to remind people that road rage is not worth to die. Sometimes it's better to let go than to finish in court and potentially in jail, or worse, dead. Thank you for watching Project Achilles, guys, and see you soon. Stay tuned for the next video.